Hi and welcome. I'm Dr. Mache Seibel and this is Ask Dr. Mache. I'm here every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and I help women in and around menopause get the information they need to live healthy, happy, and hormonally balanced lives. I'm pretty excited this evening because I thought what I would do with you tonight was to share some recent studies that have come out that are brand new, hot off the press. This is the May issue of the journal Menopause, and it is a leading journal in the area of women's wellness and menopause. And I thought I would read for you some of the key things, and let you know what's going on to do with hysterectomy, with birth control, with hormones, and a number of other things, and sort of what's current, what's really happening in this whole field. If you're here for the first time, I want to let you know that this is brought to you by the HotYearsMag.com. You can go to HotYearsMag.com and download free this award-winning magazine. You can see one of them here. There's Mary Lou Henner on the cover here. You can see another with Rina Janov is another person that's on the cover. And these are digital magazines that are available for any type of digital device, whether you have an Android or an Apple, or you have just your computer. And again, you can go and get it at HotYearsMag.com and enjoy it. It's absolutely filled with great information. Some of the information is there in the form of stories that are written. There's also videos and interviews and audio and a whole lot of information. There's recipes, exercises. It's a lot of stuff that will really help you. So take advantage of that. Also, if you have friends who are in or around menopause, or people who have sisters or mothers or siblings who are at that point in time and they would be interested to listen, then for goodness sake, let them know, share this so that you can have them join us and get the information that would be helpful to you. Well, I want to talk to you about one of the things it's talking about right now is that there is a huge thing going on right now with vaginal estrogen. Hi, Virginia. How are you? Thank you very much for joining me, and welcome. I want to talk about vaginal estrogen because a lot of people think there's a lot of worry and confusion about hormones. I know that today I saw 3 new patients at Beth Israel Hospital, Deaconess Medical Center, at Harvard Medical School. And I saw, and all 3 of them were concerned about, is estrogen safe? Is there anything safer? Is this something I can take? And I want to tell you that whether or not to take hormones is still very confusing, even though I have written all of this down for you in my best-selling book, The Estrogen Fix. And this book spells it out for you, all about hormones, when to take them, how to take them, which ones to take, how long to take them. And it explains also the estrogen window, the timing to begin hormones so that you can take them safely and gain the benefit with minimal amounts of risk. So, Virginia, if you have any questions, I hope that you will let me know because I'm here to try to help and to answer questions. So, love to hear from you if you have things that are on your mind or concern. But let's talk about this now. One of the things about this local estrogen, is it safe? When can you take it? Is it okay? What about if you have breast cancer? All this are questions that are very common and concerning. And right now, what there's a big movement to do is that local estrogen meaning estrogen you place directly into the vagina, not that you take by mouth or not that you rub on your skin, but the stuff that you put into the vaginal canal. Is that safe? Well, first of all, it is safe. It turns out that even women who have had estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, according to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, who put out an opinion piece saying this is what the data shows. According to them, vaginal estrogen, local estrogen, can be taken even in women who have had estrogen receptor positive breast cancer. Now, you might want to try something else first, but if nothing else works, and the reason that they say that, and the reason they say you can take vaginal estrogen, is because all of the data, all the studies that they have show that there's no increased risk of death and there's no increased risk of recurrence if you use it that way. Now, that's pretty darn important, because a lot of people who go through breast cancer treatment and who are trying to avoid hormones are really struggling with their sexual lives because the intimacy becomes so much more difficult because of dryness and pain. And that's a big problem for women. And right now, what they're writing about in the journal Menopause, and why I'm bringing this up at this moment, is because there's a big effort by the doctors that are involved in menopause, such as myself, to try and get Congress, to try and get the Food and Drug Administration to take away the little black box. It's on the estrogen, the vaginal estrogen, saying it increases the risk of breast cancer and heart disease. Because there is no data, zero data, no information to suggest that's the case. First of all, most of it never gets out of the vagina. It stays there locally. And the little bit that gets in the bloodstream doesn't increase the risk, and that's what all the studies show. And the fact is that there are some forms of it, some amounts of it that you can take that basically don't get in the bloodstream. And of course, there are other options besides estrogen. But my point here is to say that we're trying very hard to get the manufacturers to change that particular warning, because it isn't justified. It's just not appropriate. So that's one of the articles that's being talked about. I want to talk about another one that's in here. If you have any questions about that, Virginia, if you do or anyone else does, well, type them out or just let me know and we can talk about them. I'd be happy to address them. So here's another one. This one is about, does the birth control pill increase the risk of breast cancer? There's a lot of worry about that. A lot of women, maybe you were on the birth control pill. And if you were on the birth control pill, what's that do to your risk of either breast cancer or cancer of the ovary? Thank you very much. And the reason this is important is because, birth control pills, gosh, that's about the most common form of contraception. And as a result, so many millions of women are on it, they're just nervous. But there have been a number of studies that have shown that whether you're on the birth control pill and looking at breast cancer or ovarian cancer, Virginia's saying that I use Premarin, but I don't care for it. Well, why don't you care for it? What is it about Premarin that you didn't like? What was it that made you not want to take it or not like it? And while you're letting me know, I'll keep letting you know about this story about the birth control pill, because the birth control pill has two hormones in it, estrogen and progesterone, or some type of a hormone that's like progesterone. And the thing about it is that the dosages actually are higher, the strength is greater than, say, for instance, Premarin or some of the other hormones that are used in menopause. Now, what they found is that in all these studies, and there were a number of studies that they summarized in here, that in women who have been on estrogen and progesterone type of birth control pills, that there's very little increase, there's no, there appears not to be an increased risk of breast cancer. And in fact, there is a lower risk of ovarian cancer. In other words, it lowers the risk of ovarian cancer. And that's pretty important. As a matter of fact, even using the pill for as little as 1 year lowers the risk of ovarian cancer. And they have a number of studies that they talk about. I won't go into all of them. But here's another one. What if you have a family history of breast cancer? Does that put you at more risk if you use oral contraceptives? Now, of course, if you have a family history of breast cancer, in general, you have a little more risk of getting breast cancer. But if you use the birth control pill and you have a family history of breast cancer, that does not further increase the risk of breast cancer in that population. So that's important for women to know. Now, there's one subset of women in particular that it talks about. There's women who have the BRCA, or the breast cancer gene. And those women are at increased risk of breast and ovarian cancer. As a matter of fact, by age 80, women who have the BRCA1 have an 80% chance, by the age of 80, have a 70% chance of having breast cancer. That's pretty high. And women who have the BRCA have also a 44% chance of ovarian cancer if they have BRCA1, and a 17% chance if they have BRCA2. So what if you take the pill and you have the BRCA gene? And it turns out that it's not clear if it changes the risk for breast cancer. It may be that much of an increase, maybe, not clear, but it's not that much. It may be this much. But here's what's important, is the risk of ovarian cancer goes down tremendously. It goes down by a significant amount, by about 33%. That's a pretty good. That's with just 1 year of being on it, and it can go down even more, as much as 50%, if you stay on it longer. So that's another important study. So having that BRCA gene, you're still able to use the pill. And I might add here that if you go have the BRCA gene and you use hormones like Premarin or estradiol, that's an issue. Virginia says it was too messy and uncomfortable. Now, you must be talking about using it vaginally. Are you talking about using it locally? Is that what we're talking about? Because if you are talking about it, Virginia, using local estrogen, then, and I'm talking about putting it in the vagina, which is where it might be messy, that's a common complaint, that it is messy. Now, there are some that are less messy. Those include, there's one called a Vagifem, which is a form of estrogen that comes as a pill. And the pill is just small. It's about the size of an aspirin. And it comes on like a little pencil. And the pencil has like a little plunger on it. And so you put this rather slender extension thing basically in the vagina. The pill's right, the little pill is right here at the tip. And when you insert it, you just put it into the vagina about that far and then press the little plunger, and that releases the little prongs at the end and it lets the pill loose. And so you can use that. That has a lot less messiness to it. There's also some new alternatives to estrogen that are out now that are rather interesting. There's one that's called Intrarosa, or DHEA. It's a hormone that breaks down into estrogen and testosterone, and that's one that can be used vaginally, that does not cause much of a mess, minimal discharge, and it's really not even estrogen because the mouth, that doesn't get any in the bloodstream. So that's an interesting one to consider. Then there are a number of other products that are on the market which are useful for vaginal dryness that can be helpful to you. So the messiness can be somewhat of an issue. Another thing that you can do is you can just take about a pea-size, just squirt a little pea-sized amount of it on the tip of the finger and rub it around on the outside. That'll keep a lot of the tissues beneficial in terms of not dry and not irritated, but it won't won't get in as far, but it doesn't keep it messy. The good news about when it's messy and it comes out is it's bathing the outer tissues with the Premarin, and that's actually healing for those tissues. And so it has a good part, but maybe trying a smaller amount will help. Anyway, there's a lot of tips and things I can do if you're willing to talk more about it, Virginia, which I'm happy to try and share how to go about this. But there's a lot of little tricks that you can do. But messiness is a problem. I mean, people don't want to deal with that, and I can understand it. But there is the upside, and that is it is very helpful in soothing those tissues and healing them. Okay, so another one is that a story about a paper about hysterectomy. What happens if you take out the uterus? Well, here's something that's very interesting. A lot of people think that if you take the uterus out and you leave the ovaries in, well, you still have your hormone production, and so there's no problem. But the fact of the matter is that if you take out the uterus, you have a hysterectomy, the changes in the blood supply as a result of removing the uterus actually is causing the ovaries to stop working as well. And in about 3 years, about a third of women will go into menopause. And in about 7 years, about 98% of women are going to go into menopause. So this is a big problem because especially today, like the women who have the BRCA gene, they're having surgery to take out their ovaries usually around age 35. So they're going into menopause really early, and many women are having hysterectomies before the age of 35, particularly before the age of 40, and definitely before the age of 45. Remember, there's like 400,000 hysterectomies every year in the United States alone, that's a lot of hysterectomies. And so this is a lot of women going into having their uterus removed, and that's with or without taking out the ovaries. So these women who are having it early, like 35 or 40, who have their uterus removed, I'm not talking about the ovaries, I'm talking about just the uterus, they're going to go into menopause by age 45 for the most part, or 40. And that is fraught with a lot of problems because women who go into earlier menopause have more difficulty with mood, with mental conditions, with heart disease, with loss of bone, with a whole host of real significant medical conditions. And so if you're a woman who's having a hysterectomy, this is a time when you have to talk with your healthcare provider about taking hormones afterwards, at least up until the time of natural menopause, which is age 51. Anyway, if you have more questions about that, I'm happy to try and address those questions for you. These are really important questions, important issues, and I want to try and raise those for you. This is another paper that came out. It's about the impact of hot flashes and hormone therapy on the economy. Can you imagine? Hot flashes affecting the economy. What are they talking about? Well, what they're talking about is that about 80% of women have hot flashes. And a lot of those women have moderate to severe hot flashes. And it turns out that the total healthcare costs, in other words, in the United States, healthcare costs make up 17.5% of the total gross domestic product. In other words, healthcare costs the United States $17.5 for every $100 spent in the entire country. So healthcare is a bloody fortune, right? That is amazing. And in this study, they wanted to look at what about hot flashes? Because they found that women that have hot flashes, particularly if they're younger and they're moderate to severe hot flashes, they have increased depression, increased bad cholesterol, increased irregular heartbeats, increased heart or coronary artery disease, increased arthritis, increased asthma, increased osteoporosis or thinning of the bones, increased diabetes. This is a lot of stuff, unless they get estrogen. And the women that get estrogen generally prevent all of those chronic illnesses. And how this ties into cost is that those chronic illnesses are the main illnesses that add to the 17.5% of the total gross domestic product. So hot flashes is contributing to the cost of health care in the United States, and estrogen can help to prevent that. That's pretty mind-boggling when you think about it. Anyway, that's called, in an article called Estrogen Therapy, Economic Considerations. So it's really important to think about treating these things, because over 15 years of follow-up, women who had surgery, who had a hysterectomy, who were 45 and younger, over the next window of time, over 15 years, they had all of those conditions: irregular heartbeats, coronary artery disease, arthritis, asthma, COPD or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, osteoporosis or thinning of the bone. These are significant conditions. So treatment is very, very important. And so anyway, I wanted to share these particular studies with you because I really think that it's kind of cool to get the information that's brand new coming out and to have access to it so that you know what's going on. And if you have any questions on any of those things, Virginia, if you would like to talk more about the things that are troubling you, I'd be happy to address them. But if you want to ask questions, anyone wants to ask questions that they have or are concerned about or thinking about, well, I'd be very happy to answer your questions. I want to remind you that this is brought to you by HotYearsMag.com. If you go to HotYearsMag.com, you can get a free copy of the award-winning magazine, The Hot Years, and it's really a very cool magazine. And if you're trying to sort out how much your symptoms are affecting you, then you can go to menopausequiz.com. Take the menopause quiz. It takes 2 minutes, and you'll get some answers that will help you sort out how much your symptoms are affecting you. Finally, I want to mention that if you have not gotten this book, The Estrogen Fix, it's a bestseller has been a bestseller on Amazon, and it really will clarify for you all about hormones and alternatives to hormones. And it talks about how estrogens affect your brain, your breast, your bones, your bladder, your skin, every organ in your body. Takes it organ by organ. It talks about how to talk with your doctor about hormones, and it also gives you all the alternatives to hormones so that you're able to know if you don't want to take hormones, what else can you take. And some of the things I've been talking about are in it. And the book came out not that long ago, near the end of last year, so it's still a very new book. And it was updated up until the moment I turned it in, so it has a lot of current information. Well, I hope that you will share this information. If you come on after the live section of this is passed and you have questions, I do go back and check to see if there's any new questions that come in, and I'll attempt to address them. And I hope that you'll share this with your friends, with family, with people who would benefit from getting more information about this very important topic. And I would be very happy to hear from you. So I'm here every week at 9 p.m. Eastern and on 6 p.m. Pacific. And it's always fun to see people, to have people come back. Sometimes we have people from around the world, from Australia, from Japan, from Europe, from Canada, from England, a lot of places. And so it's always fun to have you join as well. And if you are knowing someone who you think would benefit from this information, then I hope you'll tell them about it. And if you have questions, you can either join me here and ask them, or you can go to askdrmache.com, 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 and you can submit a question as well. And I'm always happy to read those. We typically have several of those questions that I will sometimes read at the beginning. But thank you very much for joining me. Virginia, thank you very much for being brave and for asking your questions and talking about this. And if you have other things that come up, I'd love to hear from you. Again, I hope to see you next week at 9 p.m. Eastern and on Thursdays. So have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you at the next occasion. Don't forget, check out hotyearsmag.com, download it, and start getting the benefits of all that information right in your inbox. Stay well.